Snow days. If you've been paying attention to the weather here in the Charlottesville area, we've gotten just a little bit of snow and enough about 2 weeks ago to cancel school, get the kids out, building our friend Krusty the Snowman. Snow is beautiful. You get awesome sunrises and sunsets overlooking the mountains if you live up on top of a hill like where I do. And the kids are just overcome with excitement, and they get to have lots of fun, like me and little Fo here, down the small hills that we have in our mountains, going as fast as we can.
Oh yeah! Wow!
Some of us even found ways to meld our favorite things to do, like biking and parenting, like my buddy Jim here, who got roped into a different type of adventure.
All right, let's go. I need some speed. Faster, Jim, faster. Power. How many watts?
So as we get going on the FoCo Flow Show here today, thought it might be helpful to throw out some tips and tricks to making the most out of mountain biking in the snow. Read a lot about whether or not the fat bike is dead, and if we've seen the last of the fast bike craze, and that might be true. We'll get into that, but you don't need a fat bike, although I'm lucky enough to have one to make the most of it. So let's put on our snow gear and our balaclava, find a single track that's good in the snow, and well, let's go find that flow. The first question you might be asking yourself is, what kind of bike do I need to effectively mountain bike in the snow? And the short answer is, whatever bike you have. Now, that being said, there are some things that you can do to make your experience a little bit easier and for the bike to perform better. The general rule is the more air volume, the wider tire you have, the better it's going to do. Here in the video, you see my buddy Jim riding on his Trek Stash mountain bike, which is a 29er plus size bike. So it's got 3-inch wide tires. It's fairly rare in the industry. There's a few manufacturers out there that make this bike, but any plus size tire bike would do pretty well. And on the other hand, I'm riding a Cannondale Fat Cad 2, which is a bona fide, legit fat bike. Here you see it in FoCo's bike shop with a little overview of what it looks like. This baby's got 4-inch wide fat bike tires, and pretty darn capable because I put a Bluto fork on it for the dirt trails. Actually, one of my favorite bikes I've ever owned, but it's great in the snow because of those wide tires. It's able to sort of plow through and then stay on top of some of the snowpack. But I've got buddies that have ridden on with regular mountain bike tires all the way down to cyclocross bikes if you've got the right conditions to ride in. So the big picture is, the wider the tire, the better you're going to do, but don't let that stop you from getting out there. Just have a attitude that no matter what, we'll have a good time, because sometimes it can be a little bit arduous plowing through the snow if it gets a little deep. And the second thing I'll mention is sort of an extension of the first, and that is, what type of tire volume, air volume, do you want to run when mountain biking in the snow? And again, the short answer is, whatever tires you're running, you want to run the lowest air pressure you can without the tire being torn off the rim if you corner too high. So again, the fat bike tires are the best because you can run air pressure in the mid single digits, 5, 6, 7 psi. I'm about 200 pounds, so I run about 8, 9 psi. I think Jim up there is running in the low teens. And even on your regular mountain bike tires, the lower volume allows for the contact patch to be as wide as it can on whatever tires you have. This might be a little bit different on cyclocross bikes. I've got literally no experience on cyclocross bikes. But the general rule for mountain bikes is, the lower pressure you run here, the better the bike's going to perform there in the snow. So the next question you might be asking is, what type of trail is going to be best for mountain biking the snow? And again, this varies by region and location, but in my experience, the short answer is one without a ton of elevation. Of course, you don't want to be in an area where you're climbing straight up a 5,000-foot mountain to get there, just because you're going to end up pushing your bike more than not, as me and my buddy Jay experienced out in Pisgah a couple years ago, where we didn't know it was snowing at the top of the mountain. But that's a story for another day. You can see here we're at the Old Mill single track right on the east side of Charlottesville. It follows the Rivanna River that you see here. As I pause for the obligatory, picture of my bike leaning against stuff here at sunrise. We got about 3 inches of snow here, so that's just about as important as anything else as you're trying to find a good trail to ride. The snow is hard packed, so the fluffier the snow, the deeper the snow is, the harder it's going to be to have an effective ride here. So we got about 3 inches of snow. I mean, up to 6, 7, even a foot of snow works if it's hard packed and the surface underneath is hard, well-defined trail. If you get into lots of buried rocks and roots and things like that that are still accessible while you're biking, it becomes even more arduous and challenging. This Old Mill single track is absolutely perfect. There's a little bit of up and down, as you'll sort of see here as we keep going. But the base of the surface is snow. What you don't want is a scenario where there's any kind of melting going on and that your tire tracks are getting through and leaving ruts in the trail. You see here, but there's a layer of ice and crunchy snow underneath, so we're not leaving any ruts or anything like that. If at any point that you were on the trail and you noticed leaving bad ruts or something to that effect, you would want to not ride the trail because you're going to destroy the trail underneath. So as long as there's a base of snow, your tires are staying above the dirt, and you're able to carry some momentum. Again, with the lower volume, wider tires, you'll be able to feel that pretty quickly. Again, there are great places out there that have more elevation. It just creates a different experience. Where I've found here, along the river, there's not a ton of elevation, but it's a lot of fun to find the areas that sort of roll and you kind of bank into the snow turns and things like that. It creates a different experience of mountain biking that you wouldn't get anywhere else. As we finish up here with one of the steeper descents on this trail, which again, 2 seconds long, but you'll see us go down here in a second. That's quite a bit of fun. The next question you might be asking yourself is, when is the best time to mountain bike in the snow? Which, other than snow, pretty much any time will work, but it's something worth considering as the days are going to be shorter in the winter time. So you can see a lot of times we're bundling up like this right here. We got started at 6 in the morning, the sun wasn't up, and we're plowing down towards the trail here with our high beams on as the sun comes up. I would say that the morning is going to be your better opportunity to do snow mountain biking. Again, if it stays below freezing throughout the entire day, it doesn't really matter. But if you're waiting till the sun comes up and the temperatures rise, and if the temperature does creep above freezing, in the middle of the day when the temperatures are the highest or into the afternoon, you're going to run into a situation where you're going to have really nice hard-packed snow turning into a slushy mess, especially if the snow isn't all that deep. Here it's, like I said, only 1 to 3 inches deep. That would eventually turn into that trail rut situation where you're getting down to the dirt and messing up the trails pretty bad, or thrashing your bike with all the mud and muck that you'd be throwing up. So there's a lot of different ways to do that as long as there's snow on the ground. But just remember, the days are shorter. The earlier you can get started, the better experience that you'll have. Oh yeah. So as we finish up here, we'll leave you with one more question, what should I wear when mountain biking in the snow? Again, I don't think this is revolutionary information, but it's going to be cold 99 times out of 100 if you're mountain biking in the snow. So for me, it's all about layers. Those neon green Gripsia gloves that you see there, they are winter-specific Pearl Izumi gloves. They are worth the price of admission there. Wool socks, and if it's below freezing, it's normally socks and then tinfoil, and then wool socks over top of the tinfoil on the socks. It works, trust me. And then I wear a beanie or a hat or a balaclava underneath my helmet. The wind and the wetness is the enemy here when mountain biking in the snow, or in the cold in general, but definitely in the snow. You'll see from the pictures here of me and my buddy Jim, again, we've got tights on, we've got a layer over the tights. I've got 3 layers up on the chest. I've actually found that fleece underneath of a windbreaking layer really dissipates the wind and the cold there, along with the balaclava, which I have pulled down, and the helmet. So again, you do your best to stay dry. I would avoid creek crossings if that's an opportunity. Maybe it's frozen, but again, tread lightly. The more that you are able to keep yourself dry and keep the wind off of your extremities, the better off you'll be. So as we finish up here with a little bit more of the ride, mountain biking in the snow is just a new and different dynamic. If you've never done it before, I highly recommend it. Again, you don't have to have a fat bike, but it helps. You don't need a plus-size tire bike, but that helps. Anything you can, but get out there, have some fun, and if you're on the snow, find that flow.
All right, here we go. Oh, it's just me. It's just me.